Do you want to learn what goes into making incredible science comics? I chatted with award-winning science writer Amber Dance and illustrator Maki Naro about their process, and I think it's well worth checking out. Huge thanks to Maki and Amber for taking the time to chat with me. Let's get into it. I'm excited, super excited to have Maki Naro and Amber Dance here to chat with us. I will let them introduce themselves, but both incredible science communicators, both have very different ways of communicating science, which I think is super interesting. Um, and yeah, we're going to be chatting about those different ways of communicating science and some of the challenges and some of the amazing work that these guys have collaborated on together and stuff that they've also done on their own. So, Amber, do you want to? I guess I should introduce myself. So, for those of you who are here don't know me, I'm Ian or Nerdwino, whichever you like. I go by Nerdwino on Twitch. I'm an astronomer with a PhD from the University of Illinois, and I worked at NASA for about 10 years, and now I create science content live on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 6 p.m., and also make YouTube videos and Instagram reels. So that's a quick summary of me. And drop a follow on the channel. Feel free to ask any questions that you would like in chat as well. If you're new here, you can just type in chat. If you click on the little redeem button at the bottom, there is a redeem called guest question. And if you use that to ask your questions, it helps me keep track of all the questions that are coming in if it gets hectic. But feel free to just type it in chat as well, and we'll try and get to it. And we will have time for questions at the end as well. So, Amber, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for inviting us, Ian. I like your shirt.
Well, thanks. Yeah, here I'll give you the full thing. It's
Very important things to know.
yeah. I think I'm back
Yeah,
to front actually. I need to flip my camera. I just noticed.
yeah, you're backwards, but I saw it before, so I knew what it said. So I'm a freelance science writer. I live in the Los Angeles area, and I'm a contributor at Knowable Magazine. And as Ian mentioned, my background is a PhD in biology, during which I decided I like to talk about science and I like to think about science, but I don't so much like to do science. So I moved into science writing instead, and I can talk more about that if people want to hear more. So I mostly write life science, but sometimes I go outside my comfort zone and write things like environmental chemistry or astrophysics. And at this moment in my career, I am a woman of many hats. So I also organize the science program for the annual Science Writers Conference in the fall on behalf of the Council for the Advancement of Science Writing. I occasionally teach Science Writing 101 at UCLA Extension. And then the last hat I'm trying to jam on my head here is to get into editing and book editing, not just science and nonfiction, but I also recently got a certification in fiction editing. I'm particularly interested in speculative fiction that features strong female characters. So that's me.
That's awesome. Wow, that is a lot of hats. Amazing. Maki, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm going to try to do a little screen share here and hope it works.
Awesome. There we go.
Oh, great.
Hey, awesome.
Love
I
it.
didn't know if this would work.
So cool.
So, hey everyone, I'm Maki. I am an illustrator, a journalist, and a science communicator. I've been drawing comics about science since I think late 2010. Started up a blog just because I didn't know what else to do. I just wanted to draw comics, and science was something I was interested in. And I've been very fortunate to be able to be doing that. So yeah, more than full-time professionally, over 10 years now. I was working other jobs and things while I was first starting off. And yeah, most of my comics, if you're familiar, obviously on knowable.com, I've been working with them since I think 2017. But if you're familiar with the Nib at all, I did a lot of work there and had a short stint on the Popular Science blog network. I love drawing space, so this is kind of a perfect stream for me to be on.
Oh yeah.
Give me a budding early solar system to draw, and I'm happy. I don't know, something about glowy discs.
Oh wow, love it.
Also, if you need a dramatic portrait of your pet, that's also something that I seem to be really into.
Nice.
Oh, and here's some of the portraits that. So when I signed on with Noble doing
That's Rosie, right?
comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Rosie there and Amber there.
Uh-huh.
I signed on, yeah, I think in like 2017. One of my editors from the Nib was drawing comics for them and consulting with them, Andy Warner, and he suggested that I be brought in as well. And it's been really fun. And so I think like if you go down that list of comics, most of them are me. There's a few other contributors as well, but I've been, drawing pretty regularly for them for a while. This is so Amber and I have been working together, for a little bit. Like we were just talking about how like this is our first time actually seeing each other face to face, but we've been I think the first one aside from the portrait I drew of her was this piece that she did of for the multicellularity piece that she wrote, and they were like, "Hey, Maki, do you want to do the banner art for this?" And I think the prompt that I got was family portrait, and I just kind of ran with it. And you're gonna hear that a lot. Noble's great. They really let me run with everything. And they've been a joy to work with. Just gonna stop share there.
Very nice. That's
I love
awesome.
that one.
Okay. Yeah, I have it up here. Let me
Really fun.
switch. I think they should still be able to hear you, but let me switch to the web. I have it up on the thing. It's this article here. Yeah, I think they can still hear you. So yeah, this is the full article. So this was Maki's banner at the top, and then some super cool writing down here. I mean, I'm not a biologist. I'm a terrible like my knowledge of biology is absolutely atrocious. Fortunately, I'm married to a veterinarian, so she keeps me on the straight and narrow. But I got through about half of this one, and I read the other one, and for me, I was like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. I can understand this. But yeah, these things are just these articles are really amazing. I love it, guys. Make sure you check it out. Here, I'm going to throw up the link in chat if you want to check out that article specifically. Oh, I'm not because I'm in the wrong window, but I would if I knew what I was doing. Here we go. There we go. All right, let's pop back. So we can talk if you want to talk in more detail a little later, maybe about that article. We can definitely jump back and have a look at that, and also the other one that you guys did. I know we're gonna get to that. I guess I was just interested because I don't know either one of you very very well. We've emailed back and forth a little bit about getting set up for this, but how did you get into? Maki touched on this a little bit, but how did you guys get into the science communication? Like, what were the first steps? Amber, you said you sort of discovered that you preferred communicating science to actually doing science. How did you what led you to that, and then did you take writing classes, or did you just find friends who were already working in science journalism and kind of ask them, or how did that work?
Yeah, so you can do any of the things you just suggested. There is no license or certification necessary to do this, but I can tell you my path. Yeah, that was a bitch of a thing to find out because I thought I was going to be a scientist since elementary school. Like literally, I have my sixth grade yearbook, and where everybody else put like ballerina, athlete, mine is like scientist because I like science, and I assumed that was the option, and so I pursued that very single-mindedly, and then got midway through my PhD, and I was spending a lot of time counting dots, bacteria on plates, spots on the microscope, and it wasn't as satisfying as I thought it was going to be. I realized I didn't want to spend a year or a decade, a whole career on like one narrowly focused question. I like talking about science, thinking about science. I love making posters and PowerPoints about the science, but the day in, day out was not for me. So first I freaked out because, man, sixth grade Amber picked the wrong thing. But once I kind of got past that a little, I picked up some books about alternative careers and all the sort of science adjacent things you could do. I went to info sessions, and I was really fascinated by this thing called science writing. Like, wait, somebody else counts the dots and I just show up at the end and I get to tell everybody about it. That sounds fun. But at the same time, the last time I wrote something that like a normal human being would understand was like maybe high school. So that was really scary. But UC San Diego had some excellent people in psych services, and they gave me the sort of the kick in the butt I needed to give it a go. I took an extension class at UCSD Extension, loved it. I would wake up Saturday morning saying, "Oh, good, now I get to do my science writing homework." So, I mean, if you can find something you want to do Saturday morning, that's the thing. I ended up finishing my PhD, and then I did a fellowship through the American Association for the Advancement of Science, as these AAAS mass media fellowships for scientists, and I did one at the Los Angeles Times. And then I did a certificate at the Science Communication Program at UC Santa Cruz, and then I interned at Nature in the DC office and kind of went from there. So I like to take the swimming lesson before I just jump in the deep end. But I know people who have just jumped in the deep end and figured it out as they go, and that is also possible.
Yeah, interesting. And again, Maki, you kind of alluded to some of your interest in cartoons in general and comics in general and illustrating in general. But was your sort of path into focusing more on the science communication side?
So Amber hit upon like so many good things. Yes, there is no license, so I definitely just jumped in to the deep end with that. Just by myself. I would draw a little comic about some cool science thing that I read about, and then write a little blog article about it. I got things wrong a lot, but that's the beauty of science and science communication, is that it gave me a chance to learn something. And a lot of times it was the scientists themselves who would come by and be like, "Oh, that comic was really cool, but you got a little, something wrong there." It was really fun meeting the scientists and doing all that. Talking to coming in later and just telling people about the dots. I took it one step further, and just not just being the one that came in. Somebody connects the dots, somebody talks about the dots. Now I just draw what the person who is talking about the dots is doing, because I found it to be a much easier way to kind of make sure I get things right, where rather than doing the writing myself, I really love collaborating with writers who are often knee deep in these subjects. So yeah, that's how most of the work, I think pretty much all the work I've done on Knowable has been, I've been teamed up with a writer, and same thing with the Nib. I work with a writer, Matthew Francis, on a lot of comics, and he's great, like, because he knows all the physics and space stuff, and I get to be the kind of curious guy who doesn't know anything, but I can like learn about it at the same time, and I feel like that actually helps in the communications, because if I get it and then I could tell people kind of the steps I took to get it, I feel like then I know I've done my job right, or at least I hope I've done my job right. It's worked for some like really dense topics like quantum teleportation, which I had no idea. And the two of us, we worked on a comic about, we used a whole bunch of Star Trek references, of course. I drew the whole thing in the style of the old Star Trek animated series. And by the end, I totally understood what they were doing, and I hope other people did too, because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and when you say explaining the steps, you mean like graphically, right? You're kind of explaining it through the images that you choose to draw, to sort of explain that you're basically explaining your thought process artistically through the illustrations that you're making. Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a lot of putting images to the metaphors that are very common in science writing. You take a complex subject and you try to boil it down to something that's a little easier to digest. And I'm just going one step further and having a visual to go alongside it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, well, as long as you write artist concept underneath, you can do anything in space, right? So.
Yeah, you definitely get away with stuff that I couldn't get away with just putting in print, because it's a cartoon. It's cute. It's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a huge conversation about creative license, and I imagine there's a fair bit of creative license in writing too, right? Or is it a lot stricter?
I mean, I got to get it right. there's no point with that the reader can say, well, she probably wrote this but meant this, whereas you could draw eyes on all those little cellular things, and the reader can probably figure out they all didn't. Hopefully, they didn't all have eyes. So yeah, there's maybe not as much freedom. I more take license when I have to leave stuff out, when I have to be like, yes, the scientist told me all about this. My reader doesn't care, or my reader doesn't need to know, or I don't have time to tell this to my reader, even though I think it's interesting. That's where the kind of the flexibility of the choices comes in and what to share, I think.
Yeah, I think you do have
some.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, I was just going to say I figured there'd be some creativity in like the examples and the explanations that you have. It's funny you mentioned the eyes thing because yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the eyes thing because that was a big discussion in several of the comics. It was like, is it okay that we put eyes on these cells, or will readers get confused and think that these cells have eyes when they don't, kind of thing. Big conversation to be had there.
Maybe I can.
Yeah. So when I make a metaphor, I don't feel like I have to get it exactly right, but if I go too far, the fact checker's going to call me on it, as they should. I really like what you said, Maki, about you bringing that non-expert perspective, because I think that can be really helpful in our job. If I write about something that is absolutely 100% in my wheelhouse, it can be harder because I talk to the scientists and we can have a chat up here, and then I've got to explain it to people who are, in any of these places. Whereas, like when I wrote about astrophysics, I had to call the physicist 3 or 4 times and be like, is this what the cosmic microwave background radiation is about? And they'd be like, no. And I'd go back and rewrite my piece, and I'd go, no, that's not right either. And finally I got it, but I was able to translate it because I was coming in as cold as the reader, like, wait, what is this about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to think of myself. Are either of you Radiolab fans?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so I try to think of myself as Robert Krulwich. Like Jad was always the guy who had the knowledge, and Robert was like kind of Columbo'd his way in and was like, oh, but what about this? And how does that work? And was just always the curious guy for Jad to bounce the science off of. And I always try to put myself in that Robert Krulwich position.
That's your viewer, my reader's position.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a little bit of, I think there's more flexibility in whether it be writing or like the YouTube videos that I make. I feel like you have more leeway than you would necessarily writing like a hardcore science paper, right? If you're writing a biology paper or a physics paper or whatever, it's pretty dull. Like you're just communicating facts. You don't care whether the person's excited to read it. You're like, this is what I did. I mean, you try and make it sort of interesting, but once you get through the 5th paragraph of equations and numbers, it's questionable whether anyone, there's like 3 specialists in the field who are still paying attention at that point. So it is a little, I think you do have a bit more ability to, like you said, metaphors and examples and comparing different things maybe than you do in that. But definitely, I think with the illustration, I think the thing with the eyes is absolutely brilliant. Like, I love it. But I could see why there were probably people who didn't think it was such a good idea.
I did hear, at least from one of the scientists who I talked to for that article, loved the art, was printing it out, putting it up in the lab.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, when I told my PhD advisor I want to be a writer, and I love my PhD advisor, she got me where I needed to be. She said, well, I write. And I was like, grants and papers, not exactly what I'm dreaming about.
Did you find
a little bit of fun with it?
Did you find, Amber, that there was and maybe I don't know whether it would have been my advisor is really cool and is very supportive. But I know a lot of people who like stream science on Twitch. They're people that they were working with and the academics they were working with were very looked down upon. Oh, you're going to stop being a scientist and become a science communicator? What are you doing? You're wasting your time. This is not worth doing. There's a little bit of sort of I don't know. There's a bit of an attitude maybe towards it in academic circles.
There is. It depends hugely on the lab
Mm.
and the advisor. Like I said, I was lucky. I mean, people from her lab have gone on to be teachers and an FBI agent. And
Wow.
so she was cool with it. And she even suggested that I put, my newspaper articles that I'd done as like a addendum to my thesis. There was that was in the air. I remember people saying, "Oh, you can't tell her. You can't tell her." I'm glad I finally told her. So it does vary. Now this was 20 years ago. I hope it's gotten a bit better now that people realize these alternative careers are just
Mm.
careers, because there simply are not positions for everybody who's in your lab to go and follow in your footsteps. There aren't that many professor jobs, and it's good if there are people with PhDs doing what I do, teaching, working on Wall Street, whatever they do. This is valuable. So.
Do you think so? Like, obviously, like the illustrations, the comics and stuff. Do you feel like that appeals to a different demographic or a different audience than, say, like an article that you might write? Or do you think it just depends on, like, is it more to do with the learning style of the person that's sort of consuming the content? How do you think? What do you think about that?
Maki, who reads comics?
I will tell you right now, everybody in
That's actually a really good,
chat
because
does.
comics are for everybody, and I think there's this prevailing stereotype that comics are for kids, and you draw a comic about science because you're aiming at kids, and that's one of the things that is constantly I'm constantly working with, is that, like, no, full grown serious adults should be able to enjoy comics, and also kids, and also teenagers, and anybody. I think it's just another medium like prose. It's just because it's a comic, it isn't, now you've got it, like, pigeonholed into one specific demographic. At least that's what I try to do. I've drawn some pretty serious comics. I have a chapter in an anthology about Guantanamo Bay that was published in 2021, I believe. And then I draw a bunch of really goofy stuff about, the early internet, or the science of radiation thing, where I interviewed two radiation experts and go on a zany. For any Fallout fans out there, it's definitely my, copyright questionable comic about radiation. I did it all with like Fallout imagery and stuff. But yeah, I think there's something for everybody, and I think my big thing was getting comics treated as something serious, and it's cool to see publications like Popular Science and Knowable just put it up alongside all their other pieces.
Yeah, that's great.
So after the sperm comic ran, somebody emailed me and asked, "Who is this for? Is this for adults or for kids?" And I wasn't sure why she was asking. Like, was she upset that we aimed something about sperm for kids? And I said, "Well, when I'm at Knowable, like, I'm usually thinking of an adult audience, but I shared this with my 11-year-old who totally loved it. So yeah, I think it can be enjoyed by many types."
Yeah, good. That's interesting. Yeah, so just to give you like the people in my chat, so we do Lego on stream, toys for kids. We do a lot of space Lego. I took it all down. I have the 3D printers back there.
Legos are for everybody.
Absolutely, and cartoons, and I guarantee you that,
like X to 99.
yeah, absolutely, and I think the same with comics, right? So, and I guarantee you, everybody in chat also reads comic books, and is maybe they're not all complete comic nerds, but I guarantee you, there's a few in there. They'll make themselves known.
Amber hit upon something really great, is that I think there's also this tendency to underestimate young people, like children to young adults, in that like in that media presented to them tends to be more infantilized than it needs to be. Like they're kids are smart. And they can enjoy things that are meant for adult audiences and understand things that are meant for adult audiences. And I think it does them a disservice to think like, oh, this comic is for grown-ups and you're not going to like it. And the comic that I make for you is going to be really silly and kiddie instead.
I think so my daughter is 12, and she's really into science, and she's also super smart and enjoys everything. But I think like NASA is an organization that does a really good job of producing content that appeals to all ages without making it super technical. Some of their stuff is more technical, but a lot of their stuff you could read it. You know, a kid can read it, an adult can read it. You can all kind of get the same information from it. And like Knowable and some of the other magazines. It's super cool to see that they're actually putting effort into it, and I'm super excited to see that the NASA STEM budget was just saved, or probably, hopefully, just saved. I just wanted to let people know I just threw up a link in chat to on Amber's website. She has a section about career transitions, and also another piece about teaching. So those links are both up in chat. Would you guys like to talk a little bit about the Journey to the Egg?
Journey to the Egg?
Yeah, Journey to the Egg. I can I'll bring it up. I think they can still be able to hear you, so let me bring up the page, and then if you just tell me what you want to. I don't know if you just want to kind of talk about it generally, and I'll just kind of scroll through it slowly, and maybe just how did this even come about? Like, what was the sort of catalyst for?
Yeah, I can start this story. So most knowable articles, they have some connection to an annual review because Annual Reviews is a publisher. And so I was trying to figure out what I was going to pitch for winter 2025, poking around Annual Reviews, and I came across this one about like the journey of the sperm. So like I mentioned, I've been studying up on fiction, and when you do that, you come across this thing called the hero's journey, which is this classic story arc with all these little steps that your hero will take. So think like Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit or Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. They are these sort of almost like ritualized steps they take. They are torn. There's something happens and they have to leave their home, their comfortable place. They have to go somewhere else and go on an adventure. And on this adventure, they may meet things that help them, or they may be challenged by environment or other characters, and all in service of some goal. Throw the ring into the volcano, whatever. And I was reading this thing about sperm, and I was like, this reminds me of the hero's journey. Like the sperm are on this adventure. They're ripped from their usual place. They're landing somewhere else. Sometimes the environment is helping them. Sometimes it's harming them. Sometimes they got to work together. Sometimes they're trying to win, all in service of getting to this goal, the egg. And so I sort of pitched it as like, could we do this kind of as an adventure story? Could we even do a comic, which I had never done before? And at first, my editors were like, well, are we going to show people having sex? I don't know if we can do that. And I was like, well, it kind of starts. That's sort of like the prequel that nobody has to see. It starts at the end of that process. So yeah, we decided to go for it. And I mean, I did all the research, and I sort of came up with an outline and the text, and then passed it on to Maki, who just added this amazing extra layer of creativity and charm and made it so fun.
Yeah, I love like the D&D undertones.
Yeah, so I mean
overtones, I'd say.
Yeah, that was all Amber. I think it was in the note. It was basically on that like second panel there, the big fantasy map where, in the script she had like, said like, oh, it could be this kind of, map like out of a Tolkien novel or something, and I just took that little note, and it's just like, yeah, this is going to be the overtone now. There are going to be little wizard sperm running around, running into monsters and other things. And it was really fun, and I alluded to that earlier, is that Knowable, the editors they're always game, the writers are always game, and I think I've been very fortunate that I kind of just get to like run amok during the creative process.
That's very cool. And how long does it take you to illustrate something like this?
I actually don't. So it was a really long development process. I'm trying to think like when I was first, kind of given the pitch to when I actually started drawing it. It's usually for something like this, I like to have like a month or more.
Oh wow, that's quick.
More the merrier, yeah. Because there's a process. I start with sketches. I actually have some of the sketches queued up, but yeah, it starts with sketches, and we go over, and like I have all the the panel layouts and things. I keep gesturing towards where I imagine the screen is. Oh, you probably can't even see me right
Yeah,
now.
we can't. They can just see they can just see
yeah.
the comic. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's there's the sketches. I start with just the panel layouts, just like what each panel has, and it's literally glorified stick figures. And,
Well,
and then we go through.
do you want to talk about that now? Maybe is now a good time? We could just switch back, and you could. I think you had some sort of visual aids prepared for the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not a lot, but
No. Yeah, that's good.
let's see. Okay, try to do this thing again.
Yeah, this part was interesting for me because I had never worked this closely with an artist before, and I saw the first sketches. I was like, wait, what am I looking at? It was really interesting to see it kind of evolve and develop, and how he did the foreground and the background separately.
Yeah, so I think this is like one of the first sketches that I sent to the email thread during the development. Was just like, okay, I want all these little sperm characters, and there's this it was this whole thing because I wanted them to be sperm-like, but like you can see here they have no arms. And early on it was suggested we could have their tails kind of like sticking out from under their cloaks, and eventually I threw all that out, and I was just like, these are just going to be a bunch of weird little dudes. And it doesn't matter. Speaking of creative license, it doesn't matter that they have hands and feet in some panels, and other panels that there's one panel where one of them during the process, I forget, there's like a process of activation, and in the panel one of them literally jumps out of their cloak with the tail spinning. And it's like the one few panels where you can actually see okay, underneath the cloaks they are sperm. And this is another pretty early sketch of the neutrophils. One of the immune cells that they might run into. And so that illustration on the right, I was like, oh, this kind of doesn't work as well, if they don't have hands and feet to keep the monster's mouth open.
This one got the biggest laugh in my household.
Oh yeah.
Donkey guys.
So,
yeah, and I remember,
actually,
Maki, you were like, I have to make them different. I don't want to draw 600 sperm that all look the same. So you made little different characters and stuff.
Yeah, and bear in mind, this is also so there's a big joke, kind of the big in joke among artists is that you don't want to draw horses. Horses are very hard to draw. Crowds are very tedious to draw, and so I had just come off of drawing a comic about the science of crowds for Noble, and then it's like oh, I never want to do this again. And the next comic that comes along goes, hey, would you like to draw 1 billion of something else? So yeah, it very quickly became okay, I'm going to draw a bunch of little dudes, but looks like we're going into an ad.
Yeah, should we do you want to just pause? It's like 2.5 minutes, so we could just wait, and or we could just chat. So people that subscribe to my channel and people who have something called Twitch Turbo are still watching us live. They don't get the ads.
Oh,
so
cool. Ooh,
okay.
nice.
We can chat with them, or since they're like
You're
the
special
lifeblood of the channel. Yeah, exactly. They're the ones who are keeping it all going.
Yeah, I'm gonna give all the secret advice that I don't. Oh no, the regular people are back. I can't talk about the secret. No, there's nothing. But so yeah, the slide I have up right now, this is an example of kind of on the left were the some of the original sketches for the panels, then the final version on the right.
And this is the cervix, I think, right?
Yeah.
And is this all, do you do this all digitally, or do you do it like pen and paper?
Yeah, it's all digital.
Digital, yeah. So do you just would you just take the sketch on the left and then use that as the sort of another layer underneath, and then do the coloring over the top of that layer and gradually build it up?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much exactly. Yeah.
So you draw with a stylus on a.
Yeah, actually, yeah, a little.
Cool.
One of these things. I don't know. I can't remember how high I need to or is it getting blurred?
In front of you. If you put it in front of you, I think you can see it. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been drawing digitally since I think around since 2010.
Okay.
I picked it up pretty quick, and I find it really fun and freeing because I could play with different layers and do stuff. And Yeah, so you kind of see like how that process can go and the changes that are made and how much I always feel bad for the writers and editors because it starts off with just like, these sketches on the left here are actually like some of the more detailed sketches that I've done for a piece. Usually it's like way more stick figure-y and scribbly, and I always feel bad because I always wonder like, oh, are they just seeing this and being like, what the heck is going on over here?
So is that the case, Amber?
That crossed my mind. Yeah. I got to. I was like, wait, what is happening? But it was cool to see it evolve
I'm trying to
because
get
I know
better.
so little about art.
Well, you need to be sort of efficient, right? You don't want to do the full thing like 5 times over.
Exactly, yeah, and that is the purpose behind, you start with the thumbnails. It's just really quick. I can put them together sometimes in like an hour, depending on
Wow.
the piece, if it's pretty cut and dry what the layout is going to be, because you don't want to be making changes once I've got this like fully painted vista here, and then you don't want to be like, oh well, actually it should be, it should look completely different, and now I've got to spend however many hours fixing it, versus back in the early stages when it takes like a minute to make a change.
Yeah, very cool. For the
Yes.
nerds in the audience, what software do you? The people are going to ask, what software do you use for your?
So I use Clip Studio Pro for most of the inking and sketching and painting. Adobe, who's gotten increasingly annoying over the years, I kind of just hang on to because all the other paint programs out there just don't do design and publishing well. It's one of those things that a lot of drawing software focuses on the art, and they don't think about people like me who then need to, send the files off to be printed. And so they need to be in CMYK and like formatted and like cropped and like things like that Adobe still kind of has the monopoly on.
I missed this, Maki, but was art your training? Is that your background?
Yeah. Kind of in a roundabout way. I mean, like, I've always been an artist. I've been drawing comics since I was a kid. Calvin and Hobbes is my big inspiration. I went to art school though and did everything but illustration. And then when I after I graduated, I moved to New York City, and studio spaces with equipment and stuff is really expensive. And so I kind of fell back on something I could do at home, which was drawing and painting.
Cool.
Very cool. Is this so? What's your favorite kind of art? Is this your favorite, or I mean, you kind of said if you could have a massive studio and somebody would pay for it all, would you do that? Or
I don't know. It's been so long now. I'm sure it'd be fun, but I don't sit and think like, oh, I wish I was, I wish I was a sculptor again, or, I wish I was editing video. So, I think illustration is always something that I've done. I think school was fun because I could try different things, but in the end, I've really fallen into, the thing that I love and the thing that I love doing, which is creating these kind of fantastical environments.
yeah, it's beautiful. The artwork is beautiful. I love it. It's very
Thank
very
you.
cool. Yeah, and I'm sure chat feels the same way. This is some very cool stuff. Amber, did you was the writing, did you do the writing to suit the panels, or did you do the writing and then the panels
I tried to.
I see.
I sort of said panel 1 should say this, panel 2 should say this, and that's not exactly how it came out, because Maki would come in and be like, well, it flows better like this, or I should move this one there. But yeah, I tried to write it to what I thought a comic would be, this being my first comic.
I mean, congratulations. First comic done.
Yeah, you actually did really well, because one of the challenges I have as a science communicator cartoonist is that like I have to take, it's often not as simple as just taking some prose and then putting into a panel, because like, you have only so much space in a panel. And one of the things you did really well was compartmentalize, the topics into kind of smaller chunks that could be broken up into panels, so that you don't have a panel that's just a wall of text they have to deal with.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time actually looking at all the other comics that are already up on Knowable and like how many words do they have per panel and how many panels and trying to figure out how that format worked before I dove in. I forgot to say the other thing that I really wanted to do with this piece was I feel like, a lot of people, including a lot of women, don't really know what's going on inside there. And I think we all should, especially since we all came from this process that we've outlined in this piece. So that was another thing I wanted to do with it, is share something that I think we should all kind of know what those parts are and what they do a little bit.
My understanding was definitely not as detailed as it is now. Let's put it that way.
I think even one of my editors was like, "Wait, I had to look up what the fallopian tubes were, and I didn't know what the uterotubal junction. That was a new one for me. I didn't know that was a part." So
I had no idea. Like, you hear the word tubes, and so like I just thought it was like a hollow cylindrical tube. So it was really cool. Like seeing the cross section, you see it's more of just kind of this like the inside of it is all like folded up, and it's not just as simple as like going straight through it. Like the fallopian tubes aren't a straw that the the sperm go through. It's way more complicated.
I feel bad for the poor little guys. It's kind of it's a bit of a journey, you know.
and only one makes it.
Yeah.
Me too. It's rough. Yeah.
Um,
Immune cell grabbing it in its net. Ouch. But the
That
other
was
thing that I learned is when I talk to these scientists, they're finding out in more recent years that the female system isn't just like no, 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 no. It's part of what it's doing is selecting for the very best sperm because apparently like 90% of sperm are just crap.
yeah.
They've got like two tails or two heads or all sorts of problems. So it's selecting for the best one because you want the best genes, but it also kind of helps them along at certain points, which I thought was really interesting. So it's not, it's not just the woman system being this passive receptacle. It's saying I like that guy, I like that guy. I'm going to help them get through and selecting. So that was interesting.
Yeah, the selection aspect of it is kind of interesting. But it is like you said, there are little bonus. It's like little bonus levels along the way, right? As you said, it decides to help at some points. It's like, you made it this far. Hey, you can go to the next level.
Yeah, it does come out in kind of like a few levels, like a video game. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had no idea about the little waiting room or the waiting area. I figured it was just like they had to get there in time. I thought the time limit was a lot shorter. Like I didn't know they could just chill and wait for the egg to come along if need be, if the timing wasn't quite right.
What was it, like up to 5 days?
Cool.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think maximum for people is about 5 days. So you can actually have sex before you ovulate, and then the sperm will just hang out for a couple of days, waiting to see if an egg comes along. And what I didn't fit in there is if they miss the egg, they just shoot out into the body cavity, like where all the other organs are. That was the bit that blew my mind.
Really?
I think I knew about that only because of like ectopic pregnancies and stuff. But yeah, like when I remember learning it and being like, oh, that's kind of weird and gross. Other things shouldn't be in the body cavity.
Yeah, that was wild.
Presumably, they don't last very long in the body cavity before they.
I don't think so. No.
Well, they get
the immune
attacked.
system is going to sop that up real fast.
They do what? Yeah, Misadventures in Astro is true. Read a book. Oh, I lost my headset. Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I'm super surprised, like how well. I don't know. So we have a bunch of art. You may know, Maki, that we have a bunch of art streamers here on Twitch, and you get to watch people doing creative stuff. And I'm always surprised how quick they are. But it surprises me how fast you're able to like put all this together. Crazy.
Yeah, sometimes it's quick. I think it depends on, like, this is one of those comics that it kind of had to come together quick, and so I was really learning on the job. Like a lot of this stuff, before drawing this comic, I really hadn't drawn a lot of cave interiors and crystals and things, and so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm drawing a crystal now, and it was really fun, kind of learning as I go, or like coming up with the characters and the scenes and things like that. So yeah, it can be really quick. It can be, I think if you let yourself just do it, it can go really well. But other times, like, I'll draw some things and they're really painstaking and it takes me a long time to get it. And luckily this one worked out well, but I think I kind of took a little bit of a freer, looser approach to it and just kind of was like, all right, we're drawing caves.
Do you find it easy to call it finished, or you're always like fiddling with little bits and pieces?
I will definitely fiddle forever if allowed to. So deadlines are awesome.
Okay.
There's nothing worse than not, you can't kind of, like I'll work with somebody and they'll kind of be like, oh, it can get done whenever. That's like the worst thing you can tell me. It'll just never be done.
Yeah, same. An editor asked me, "What do you want your deadline to be?" once, and I was like, "Next year sometime sounds good." And I find work it expands or contracts to fit the space I can give it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are serial procrastinators, right? And I know that I work better under pressure as well. If you tell me I had to have something done by, I will intentionally leave things till the last minute because I know I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like my brain will be processing the task and like getting everything ready, but I have to. The pressure has to be there for me to actually like execute somehow. Um, and usually that's worked out for me pretty well so far. But occasionally it has been in the ass. Oh, there's been a lot of sleepless nights as well, in grad school especially. Um, Okay, let me see. Oh, and so did you want to talk about that other? There was the other. I guess we kind of talked about it a little bit, but did you want to go into a bit more detail about the tracing the evolution of animals with a family cartoon comic?
Sure. I haven't read that one in some time, to be quite honest. But it was all about how do we become multicellular creatures? How do you go from these unicellular little microbes floating around to start to have them work together? And so there's this metaphor I use in the middle of the piece about like a family reunion. And if you went to the family reunion, you could see who's most similar to you and kind of trace genetic traits back. And so I had suggested that the banner art could be like something, around like a family reunion with like they've got the banner saying "Welcome, welcome everybody."
Huh.
There's even a "They Might Be Giants" song about this, about going to the family reunion and like the apes are there, but they didn't bring in the sponges or the choanoflagellates and things. And so I had very kind of the general concept, and as you can see, Maki ran with it. I think the goth lizard is probably the best part of it.
You like the lizard? The goth lizard is probably my favorite. Although the cat looks kind of like surprised as well. It's just great. I think it's just great. Like, and I don't think people necessarily. I think it's a way of, well, and this is just like my opinion, but it's kind of a way of pulling people into the story, right? I don't think anybody is going to look at this and be like, well, that's wrong and that's wrong and that's wrong. You're just like, oh, that's a cool piece of art. And then you just kind of start reading and you're like, oh, yeah, all the details in this are right. You don't sort of start, well, I wouldn't start picking holes in the artwork at the top just because.
But it draws you in.
Yeah.
I have this up on my little cabinet here, and literally 2 days ago, my son was in my office and he was like, "Tell me what all these things are in order of complexity."
No.
So it grabs your attention, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I think that's the most important part, is that it's, science is fun. And I like that, the things I like to put together is that, science is fun and comics are fun. And science in the end is all about stories, and comics are all about stories. So they're always, I've always felt that they are just meant for each other. I think science in particular tends to get, reduced to this thing that happens rather than a thing that people do, and a process rather than, science isn't just a series of inventions that kind of pop out of nowhere. Like it's a thing that people do and a process that happens. And I think that's why, like, comics, which are a form of narrative, sequential storytelling, works really well for this.
I love that. Yeah, and you've got pieces in the comics where the scientist is doing the thing, and I love when I can bring into my writing. There's not always room, but they made a mistake, or they thought this and they went down this path and then nope, well, that was completely wrong. It's this. Bringing that human journey into it is what I think is most interesting. But Maki, I have a question because you said you did a comic about Guantanamo Bay, which is not like the funniest, cutest topic. Like, how do you do a comic when it's not a fun topic?
And it's just all about the tone. It's just I don't know. I don't think I have any of those in here, but um, it just becomes about the tone that you pick, and so obviously like the chapter I illustrated was about Tom Milner, one of the lawyers who represented went on to represent a lot of the detainees once their identities were made public thanks to a whistleblower in the prison. And so like obviously it's not a cartoony Tom dancing down to Guantanamo Bay and making friends with all the detainees and stuff. It's just a slightly different tone that you take, and just how you handle the subject matter. And at the same time, I've seen people, be able to take a serious subject with like a really, what you might consider a cartoony style and make it work. I generally just tend to like shift the style of illustration to fit the subject matter.
That's super interesting. It sounds hard to me, but you're obviously very talented, so.
It's not as hard as you think. Like,
would you be able to work on something like this and something like that, like in the same day, or would it have to be like a kind of a separated thing?
Oh yeah, certainly. Like,
uh,
yeah, like I've always considered myself to be kind of a very versatile artist, or at least I like to think so. And so I love playing with different styles, and I love playing with different tones, and seeing that if I could do something really like serious and then also really light, and to have that range, I feel like is one of the things I really love. I mean, to go from drawing, if you look at any of the other comics I've done to Noble, to going and painting a whole thing like this image, or some of the images in the Sperm comic, going from a more simple style to something fully rendered and just exploring. And I think that's one of the things I've always enjoyed about Noble too, is that they've always been on board with letting me explore. Just within, I always feel so bad. There's just within those portraits that I draw, they started off in a very specific style, and then each one that would come along, I kind of took it as an opportunity to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna, brush up on my portraiture a little bit. And Lisa, the art director, has never once, I always ask her, I'm like, hey, is I'm worried about, the style creeping too much off of some of the other portraits. And she's always just kind of like, no, it's fine. Like, go for it.
Lisa's great.
And Amber, so I really enjoyed like the panels that had the stuff from the scientists themselves, and like there was the sketch, like a illustration of the scientists, and they were saying things. Do you find the scientists are pretty open to collaborating with you and giving you the information that you need for the articles and stuff?
Yeah. This one, I don't think I had too much trouble sourcing this one. One guy, so Alan Pacey, was really interesting to talk to, and he had actually done something kind of like this with the BBC 15 or 20 years ago. They did a whole like 40-minute documentary of Sperm Journey. I'll send you the link so you can
nice.
post it. It is awesome. Absolutely fantastic. So Alan was great to talk to because he had kind of thought through all this stuff before. But then I remember when I emailed him, he said, "Oh, I didn't know my face was going to be appearing in comic form." This one I tried to be very clear with the scientists, like this is going to be a comic strip. I didn't want anybody to be surprised by the kind of the tone and the approach that we took with it, than that it wasn't like this staid serious scientist thing. But they were all cool with it. But I realize now I have to warn people your face will also be in the comic. Because I looked up their bios and I was like, here, Maki, here's a picture of what the guy looks like.
Funny. I can't imagine.
For the most part, everybody I've drawn has been really, they've been really into it. I'm working on a comic now, and the scientist is from Belgium, where like comics have always been really popular. Like think Tintin. Tintin's the only Belgian comic I can think of off the top of my head, which is bad as a cartoonist, but like, and she was thrilled. Like, she is so excited to be put into comic form. And a lot of I don't know, like I don't think I've ever had anybody who wasn't game. I've had so many people who that just becomes their social media profile picture after that.
Oh, for sure. I could definitely see that. Yeah, they're great. Like the illustrations you did of the novel. Like I recognize Rosie immediately, and Amber, of course. Yeah. Well, then there's a whole world of Twitch streamers that would love to have their I don't know if you've seen, like, we have, so on Twitch there are these emotes and things. Mine are pretty basic,
Yeah.
but a lot of people have they have much more complex emotes that they have an artist that works with them, and they create like 50, 60 different emotes of different things with a theme, and they have like a theme, yeah. And then there's people have, I just have my, like, the room I'm in, but people have a backdrop with illustrations, and there's a streamer called Tiny Toxic Tofu who has a pretty complicated sort of comic strip type vibe on her stream, and she's a physicist. Actually, she has a PhD in physics. So yeah, there's all kinds of like art stuff happening on Twitch, from people streaming art to artists creating all sorts of stuff for streamers. I think we might have to reconnect it. Let's see what happens. In a minute and 4 seconds, we might all get disconnected.
Oh, shoot.
I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, it's been an hour already. I think so. So if we get disconnected, we'll just reconnect in a minute, chat. Just so you know, there's a 60-minute limit on Teams, which I had no idea about. But I don't really use Teams very much. But if we get disconnected, we'll be back. Don't fret. I think we were going to talk a little bit maybe about a couple of upcoming projects and some other things that you guys are working on.
Okay.
And then Q&A, and then if there's anything else you guys want to chat about, I don't have it. I think those are all the things that we sort of, I think we covered most of the topics that we had talked about. But I'd be super interested to know what you're working on right now, or if you have other things that are either about to be published, or that are later in the year, or teaching classes. Amber, if you have classes that are coming up that people who are interested. I presume people could take your classes online potentially, or is it in person?
It's all online over Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Very cool.
And we're still going. Yeah. So from my website, if you want to hear about the next time I run the course, which is probably going to be this fall, in evening Pacific time, just send me a note and I'll put you on my list, and I'll let you know when it goes up next time. Perfect.
And you're West Coast,
and,
right?
and West, yeah, it's probably going to have to be 6 to.
I think we just got.
We still going? Probably going to be 6 to 9 Pacific, fall semester, all over Zoom. Welcome. Too much about it, but it's another of Maki. You called them weird little guys they're doing sports, and so he did the banner ad for that one, and it's so cute.
Very nice. And that'll be on Knowable, right?
Yeah, that's on Knowable.
Knowable Mag. You guys all make sure you're all signed up for the. If you sign up for the newsletter, do you get notified when new things come out, or is that just a weekly thing on a Sunday, maybe?
Weekly, but the new stuff would be in it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
cool.
sure they'll get it out there.
I love the magazine. It looks great. Anything else? Anything you're working on, Maki, right now? Outside of, could be anything that you're excited about, or?
Yeah, so I'm working on, Amber, I'm actually going to be sending out a draft of that art after this.
Okay.
So I'm working on that banner art for that article. I've been drawn comics for Science News Explorers that are a
Good.
little more young adult focused.
Cool.
So that's going to be a fun one that I'm finishing up. And yeah, that's about it. I'm working on one other comic, an environmental with an environmental slant on it. But yeah, those are the big ones.
Yeah, we get Science News Explorers. We love the comics in my household, and I've got a piece coming out in February, Science News Grown Ups, about animals. That was really fun. And I've got a piece coming out in Quanta soon, which is great because I've wanted to get in their pages for years.
Oh, cool.
And I'm just starting to think about the program for the Science Writers meetings in the fall, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe it. It'll be here before. Yeah, it's crazy. Do you typically would a magazine approach you to write an article, or do you approach them with, hey, I have this idea for an article, what do you think? Or how does that sort of process work?
Goes both ways.
Uh,
Yeah, so they can reach out to me, and I have some people I work with regularly, or I send a pitch, which is, it's not a completed article. It's maybe I've talked to a couple people. I have a pretty good sense of what it would be about. Are you interested? And we go from there.
oh, nice. Okay, cool. Very, very, very interesting. Well, listen, I think I know it's getting late on the East Coast, and it sounds like Maki still has work to do.
No, it's all right.
If there's anything else you guys would like to talk about, feel free. Otherwise, if people have questions in chat, then feel free to throw them up. Let's see what you have to ask. We'll just give people. There's a bit of a delay between when I say things and there's like, I don't know, it's variable. Sometimes it's as much as a minute. Like the broadcast is sort of delayed up to a minute before chat actually gets it. Sometimes it's much better, but
So we can swear, and you can still cut it off.
if I was that good, I could, but no, it'll just end up in. I don't. So my stream is not. I don't have it set up as an adult stream. There is occasional cursing, usually when talking about current affairs, but other than that, yeah. But we keep it minimal. So we do try and make it so it appeals to. I mean, I wouldn't say that like young kids, but I would think anyone sort of 13 and up would not be offended by anything that happens here. Their parents, on the other hand, but. So Nick Baring said, what's the most difficult science concept you've had to express through art?
I think so. I want to say that quantum teleportation
Yeah.
comic. I'm trying to think. Probably just because of how, quantum physics is just so weird. And like, I'm actually going to see if I can grab some panels from it really quick. But yeah, I think that was it because it's such a, first of all, you're having to, like right off the bat, like you're trying to explain quantum teleportation. You have to tell them, okay, don't think of the word teleportation at all because it's not what you think it means. And so you have to like break, that first and then try to explain, quantum entanglement and spin and things like that, all while like doing it in a comic. And you have 30 panels to do it.
So that's interesting, actually. Do you usually have does whoever sort of asks you for the work tell you, okay, you have 30 panels, you have 10 panels, or is it varies? Sometimes it's up to you, sometimes they give you a limit.
Yeah, generally there's, just like I imagine with prose, there's, they have a length that they're looking for. And 30 panels is pretty standard. It's enough to kind of like get into a subject, but not like too long. Cause just with like a written article, you don't want it to just like go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think like, and that Sperm comic was interesting too.
I'm gonna pop that up on the stream right now. Here, hold on.
Is it this one with the Enterprise?
Oh, did you find it?
Yeah, it's here. It's check. Yeah.
So there's Matthew Francis there.
Oh wow, it's super cool. I love it. I love the Star Trek vibe.
Yeah, and most of the characters are my editors at the nib.
Oh really?
Funny.
some of the they've got some. There's some like funkiness with their site right now. You can see some of the panels are too small.
Yeah, the sizes are off.
I think it's a browser issue.
Might be my browser. Or it might be because I resized the window. Hold on, let me make it 100%.
No, it looks a little funny for me too.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. No, it's some browser thing. I've asked them about it before, and I guess some browsers do it and some others don't. The Nib, closed down a couple of years ago, so I imagine, sadly, it's probably not a huge priority.
Probably not going to get fixed.
So were you already a Trekkie, Maki? You already knew all these references? Yeah.
Yeah.
I used a Star Wars reference once in the lead for a story. I had to watch a whole movie just to be sure I was doing it right, because I knew if I did it wrong, people would point it out.
I never really watched the original series. It was actually one of the Next Generation was one of those like formative pieces of media for me, because it was my mom is a Star Trek fan, and so like it was one of those things that like she and I would watch Star Trek together. It's one of those like things I always remember fondly from my childhood. That and the X-Files, and especially X-Files was like, staying up late to watch X-Files with my mom was like one of those like I'm grown up now kind of moments.
I just saw Gillian Anderson, and what was she in something we were watching the other day? Oh, Tron Ares. I was like, oh my god, it's Scully from the X-Files.
All right, we need to find some way we could do a science comic with the X-Files as the reference. Something about.
Oh my god, I would love that.
Why people believe in ghosts or something.
So Maggie, how are you a hardcore? Do you have your own uniform or no?
I don't go that far.
Okay.
I probably should though. I should get a uniform. If they make like I probably already do. If they make pajamas that are just like in like the Star Trek uniform, I would totally get one of those. Like, so what you have? Unfortunately it's one of the small panels. So like, I use the I referenced the Star Trek episode where Kirk goes into a transporter and gets split into his like good and evil self.
I remember that.
So I referenced the mirror, the mirror universe Star Trek a lot to talk about, how they like split the particle into, its two entangled pairs, and because when they observe what one of the pairs is doing, they can infer what the other is doing, and that's how the information is teleported. Even though it's not strict like Star Trek transporting.
Teleportation.
That one panel's up there.
Yet. Can't teleport through solid walls. Yeah, that would be a bit unfortunate. It's super cool. I love the style of this one. Nick Baring said a picture is worth 1,000 words, but you need 1,000,000 to explain quantum physics.
This is true.
Quantum physics is weird for sure. I remember taking quantum. I had to take grad classes in quantum because I had to catch up because I did an engineering undergrad, so didn't have a lot of the physics I needed for astronomy. And quantum mechanics was one of the classes I had to take. My mind didn't make any sense to me, like logically. I mean, I understood like the wave equations and what I was doing, but it wasn't intuitive in any way. Fortunately, the professor was really cool. So.
I'm just seeing we need a 3i Atlas comic. You're gonna love my next comic for Science News Explorers then.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we've had running. So I've been making a few videos on 3i Atlas, and they've done some of them. One of them for sure is like the best performing short I've ever made, but a lot of it is conspiracy theory. The what's driving the algorithm to promote the video more is the conspiracy theorists in the comment section, which has been kind of crazy. So we actually there's an emote in here somewhere for an alien dreadnought. We even have an alien dreadnought emote. It's just been hilarious, and we've been ragging on RV as well because he's just kind of lost it. Like I don't know what prompts a tenured faculty member with a named chair to go off the rails and start I don't even know. But anyway, so the whole 3i Atlas thing's been great. We actually were lucky enough to be able to image 3i Atlas live on stream as well. We got some pictures of it. We could see it
Oh,
on
that's
the
awesome.
backyard telescope. So 3i Atlas has been a huge thing. But do you have a link? So what was the name of the place where this gonna where we could look for potential 3i Atlas content?
Oh, it's Science News Explorers. I should probably know the
I can look it up.
address for that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think you can get at least a little bit of their content without being a subscriber too.
SN Explores, I guess, is the.
Yeah, I think they do a comic every issue.
Oh, okay. I really like the fact that on the doesn't look like you can here, but on the Knowable site you could actually just bring up all the comics in one place, which is nice.
I may be biased, but I love that as well.
I mean, it's great, right? I think. Now you see, I'm going down the rabbit hole of reading all the stories. Okay, I need to turn that off. Yeah. Any other questions for anybody? Hey, Draco, thank you for the follow. 3i Atlas, yeah, we talked about that. All right. It looks as though those are the only questions. Where can people find you on social media? Where are you? Are you Instagram folks, Blue Sky folks, not at all folks?
Present on Blue Sky, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Blue Sky, and is that on your website? Can people find your Blue Sky through you?
It's Amber L Dance.
Okay, Amber L Dance. So you would be at Amber L.
Dot Sky dot whatever. I don't use it that much.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been posting a lot less lately, but my Blue Sky is the same as my website, so it'd be at makinaro.com.
Yeah, nice. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so go follow these folks on socials. Make sure you're you're also checking out Noble Magazine, checking out all the upcoming content. Check it this week, Thursday, for a little Easter egg surprise, maybe. Cool new.
Now
cool
we
new
really got a deadline to meet.
Maybe Thursday.
Public.
Actually, we're going to be live. I'll be live on Thursday night, so maybe we can we'll check it out live on stream.
There you go. If it's not up, you can shame us live.
You'll know.
That's it. We'll be I'll be removing all trace of this content at that point. No, I'm just kidding. I thank you so much for coming and chatting with us and giving us some insight into the way that the way that you do science communication. It's been super interesting. Thanks to Rosie for putting us all in touch with each other as well, of course.
Thanks, Rosie. I saw you in the chat.
Great.
Yeah, Rosie is great. And actually, there is a rumor that Rosie might be coming to have a chat with us at some point as well. So watch this space for that. I think that'd be super interesting. Rosie is another biologist, so, and editor and all kinds of things. But yeah, her background is in biology. But she is also we're doing dry January here, and I was commiserating with Rosie the other day. She's also doing dry January, which has been very good and it's very healthy and etc. But as in the current
you too, February 1st. Come on and get drunk.
Yeah, it's actually funny that there's some Twitch thing. It's not really official, but there's they don't really like people drinking on stream. So I have my apple juice on stream. I have my 12-year-old Scottish apple juice sometimes. And but no, thanks again for coming. I really appreciate it, and we'll definitely be looking out for your content. And I'm following you on all your socials and all that stuff. And then if you ever want to come on again and talk about any new projects or anything, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you back. But thanks for your time.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was great to meet you both.
Yeah. And chat, if you want to go don't forget to go check out both the websites here. Let me throw up the websites. Check out the websites and interact with these folks. Show them some love. All right, guys. Have a great evening. We will catch you. We'll catch you again.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye.